Consumer Reports just dropped their latest reliability ratings, and 7 SUVs scored so high they're calling them near perfect. But here's what's insane, 3 of these weren't even on anyone's radar 6 months ago. One of them has a hidden engineering secret that's making German automakers lose sleep at night. And the number 1 pick? It's not the SUV you think it is. In fact, most people walk right past it at dealerships without a second glance. Even more shocking, the brand that built it nearly went bankrupt 15 years ago, and now they're embarrassing luxury manufacturers that have been in business for a century. Stay until the end because the final SUV on this list has a feature that mechanics say shouldn't even be possible at this price point. And I'm going to show you exactly why Consumer Reports ranked it above vehicles that cost twice as much. Plus, there's one mistake 80% of buyers make when choosing between these 7, and it's costing them thousands in depreciation and repairs. I'll reveal that mistake right before we get to number 1, and once you know it, you'll never waste money on the wrong SUV again. There's also a pattern hiding in these 7 vehicles that exposes exactly what separates reliable SUVs from the ones that drain your bank account at 60,000 miles. Number 7. The Mazda CX-50. Most people think Mazda can't compete with the big players. They're wrong. Dead wrong. The CX-50 just earned a 91 reliability score from Consumer Reports, and here's the twist. It's built in Alabama, not Japan. But that's not the story. The story is what Mazda did to the engine. They took their Skyactiv technology and added something unexpected, a manufacturing process borrowed from luxury watchmakers. Every engine component is measured to tolerances most automakers don't even attempt. What no one expected? 0. That's the number of catastrophic engine failures reported in the first year. 0 transmission replacements. 0 electrical system meltdowns. In an era where new SUVs are basically computers on wheels that break down like laptops, the CX-50 runs like a mechanical Swiss watch. But here's where it gets interesting. Mazda deliberately kept the tech simple. No massive touchscreen taking over the entire dashboard. No subscription required for remote start. No over-the-air updates that brick your infotainment system. They focused on one thing, making every single component last. And owners are reporting something bizarre. The vehicle actually feels tighter and more solid after 30,000 miles than when they drove it off the lot. Panel gaps stay consistent. Door closes sound the same. Nothing rattles. The interior? That's where Mazda played a different game entirely. While other brands are cramming in cheap plastic and calling it modern minimalism, the CX-50 has materials you'd find in vehicles costing $15,000 more. Real stitching on the dashboard, actual sound dampening in the doors, not just a single foam pad but multiple layers of acoustic material, a cabin so quiet that owners say they can hear their heartbeat at highway speeds. Test drivers reported 68 decibels at 70 mph, which is luxury sedan territory. The all-wheel drive system is where engineering nerds get excited. It's not the basic system that only engages when you're already slipping. This is predictive AWD that reads the road 200 times per second and shifts power before you lose traction. Owners in Colorado are reporting that it outperforms SUVs that cost twice as much in actual snow. Not on a test track on mountain passes where mistakes mean sliding off a cliff. And here's what makes the 91 score even more impressive. This vehicle is fun to drive. Most reliable SUVs feel like appliances. The CX-50 feels like Mazda remembered they used to make sports cars. Steering has actual feedback. The throttle response is immediate. It corners flat. This is what happens when engineers are allowed to prioritize driving dynamics instead of just checking boxes on a feature list. But what mechanics are noticing in service bays is the real tell. The CX-50 comes in for oil changes and tire rotations, and that's it. No mysterious check engine lights, no infotainment glitches, no electrical gremlins, just routine maintenance. For a brand new platform with a new engine, that's almost unheard of. Number 6. The Subaru Outback Wilderness. Everyone knows Subaru builds reliable vehicles, but the Outback Wilderness isn't just reliable, it's borderline indestructible. Consumer Reports gave it a 93, and here's what makes that number terrifying for competitors. This SUV was torture tested in conditions that would kill most vehicles. Death Valley heat at 127 degrees, Alaska cold at -40, the kind of off-road terrain that breaks axles and dreams, Rocky Mountain passes, muddy forest trails, desert sand that destroys wheel bearings. It survived everything, without drama, without failures. The secret? Subaru learned from their mistakes. Remember the head gasket issues that plagued them for years? The ones that cost owners thousands in repairs and nearly destroyed Subaru's reputation? They rebuilt the entire engine block from scratch. New metallurgy in the block itself. New sealing technology borrowed from marine engines. They even changed how the coolant flows through the block, eliminating hot spots that caused the old gaskets to fail. And then they did something no one talks about. They tested each engine for 200 hours straight before installation. Not a sample. Every single engine. What mechanics are noticing is even stranger. The Outback Wilderness has fewer parts than its competitors. Subaru deleted entire systems that other brands rely on, replacing complexity with simplicity. Electronic parking brake? Gone. Replaced with a traditional mechanical system that can't fail due to a software glitch. Power lift gate with 7 sensors and a pinch protection system? Nope. Manual lift gate that weighs less and never needs calibration. Fewer parts means fewer failures. It's the opposite of how modern vehicles are designed, where manufacturers add complexity to justify higher prices. And the most shocking part? It holds its value better than luxury SUVs that cost twice as much. 3-year residual values are running at 72%. That means if you spend $40,000 today, it'll be worth $28,800 in 3 years. Compare that to a luxury SUV that drops to 55% of its value, and suddenly the Outback Wilderness looks like a financial genius move. Subaru also engineered something into this vehicle that most people don't notice until they need it: genuine durability. The underbody protection isn't decorative plastic, it's thick steel plating. The suspension components are larger diameter than necessary for the weight. The radiator has protective mesh that stops rocks but doesn't restrict airflow. These are details that don't show up in reviews but matter enormously when you're 200 miles from the nearest dealership. But what no one expected is coming next, and it's from a brand that's rewriting the rules of hybrid reliability. Number 4. The Lexus NX 350h. Lexus has always been reliable. It's their brand identity, but the NX 350h is operating on a different level entirely. Consumer Reports gave it a 95 parent, a score that's almost unheard of for a first-generation vehicle with this much technology. And here's what makes that score disturbing. This SUV is packed with tech that should be braking constantly. Adaptive suspension that adjusts damping 650 times per second, digital side mirrors that replace traditional glass, a touchpad interface that actually works instead of frustrating drivers, ambient lighting with 64 colors, a heads-up display with navigation arrows. How is this possible? How does a vehicle with this much complexity score higher than simple vehicles with basic technology? Lexus did something radical. They delayed the launch by 11 months. Not because of supply chain issues, not because of design changes, because during pre-production testing, they found 17 different ways the vehicle could fail in the first 50,000 miles. So they redesigned 17 different systems from scratch. The digital mirror controllers, completely re-engineered with redundant processors. The adaptive suspension, new valve design in the dampers. The touchpad, different supplier and new software architecture. The vehicle you can buy today is essentially the second generation of a vehicle that never officially had a first generation. The hybrid system is borrowed from Toyota's industrial equipment division, not from their vehicle division, from the forklifts and industrial machinery that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in warehouses and distribution centers. They took that bulletproof technology that's designed to operate continuously for years without maintenance and adapted it for the NX. The result? A hybrid system that's overbuilt for automotive use. It's like using tank armor to protect a bicycle. The components are rated for loads and duty cycles that a passenger vehicle will never experience. But here's the detail that makes no sense from a marketing perspective. The NX 350h is faster than the non-hybrid version. Most hybrids sacrifice performance for efficiency. You accept slower acceleration in exchange for better gas mileage. Not this one. 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds while returning 39 miles per gallon combined. And owners report that the performance doesn't degrade over time. At 50,000 miles, it's just as quick as day one. The hybrid battery doesn't lose capacity. The electric motor doesn't lose power. It's defying the normal degradation curve that affects all battery-powered systems. What Lexus won't tell you in their marketing, the markup on this vehicle is surprisingly low for a luxury brand. They're practically selling it at cost to gain market share from German competitors. Dealers are frustrated because there's less profit margin. They make more money selling a Toyota Highlander than a Lexus NX. But buyers are getting a luxury hybrid for near mainstream pricing. You're paying $45,000 for a vehicle that feels like it should cost $60,000. The interior is where Lexus makes their statement. The leather isn't the cheap corrected grain leather most manufacturers use. Our semi-aniline leather that costs 3 times as much and actually ages beautifully instead of cracking. The stitching isn't decorative, every seam is functional and reinforced. The plastics on the dashboard aren't plastic at all. They're a composite material that doesn't off-gas in summer heat or become brittle in winter cold. And the maintenance schedule reads like a fantasy. Oil changes every 10,000 miles. Transmission fluid never needs changing. Lifetime fill. Brake pads, owners are reporting 80,000 miles before replacement because the regenerative braking system does 70% of the stopping work. The brake rotors never get hot enough to warp. The pads barely touch the rotors except in emergency stops. But the twist no one saw coming is next, and it involves a 3-row SUV that shouldn't be this reliable. Number 3. The Toyota Highlander Hybrid. 3-row SUVs are reliability nightmares. Everyone in the industry knows this. More weight means more stress on the drivetrain. More passengers means more electrical load. More complexity in the second and third row mechanisms. More failures. It's automotive mathematics. Except the Highlander Hybrid scored a 96 from Consumer Reports, and that number is making every other 3-row manufacturer question their entire engineering philosophy. Toyota's secret? They didn't try to reinvent anything. They didn't chase innovation for innovation's sake. They took technologies proven over millions of miles in the Prius and Camry hybrid systems that have been refined for 2 decades and scaled them up. No experimental systems. No cutting-edge tech that sounds impressive in press releases but fails in driveways. Just proven components assembled with obsessive precision. But here's what makes the Highlander Hybrid terrifying for competitors. It's been in production since 2020, and there's still no pattern of significant failures. Check the NHTSA database. Look at owner forums. Search for class action lawsuits. Nothing. No recalls for major systems. No class action lawsuits for transmissions or engines. No angry owner forums filled with complaints about catastrophic breakdowns. In the automotive world, this level of reliability for a 3-row hybrid is unprecedented. Most vehicles have at least one major issue by year 3. The Highlander Hybrid has none. The build quality? There's a reason Toyota's manufacturing plants are studied like religious texts in business schools. Every Highlander Hybrid goes through 847 quality checkpoints before leaving the factory. Not inspections where someone glances at a panel gap. Actual functional tests. They don't just look at the door seals, they test them with calibrated pressure sensors that measure seal compression to the millimeter. They don't just check if the electronics work, they run diagnostic sweeps that would take a dealership technician 2 hours to complete. If any of those 847 tests fail, the vehicle goes back for correction. But here's the catch that most buyers miss. The Highlander Hybrid holds its value so well that financing it long-term actually makes more financial sense than leasing. Run the numbers. In 3 years, it'll be worth 70% of what you paid. That's a $50,000 SUV still worth $35,000. Show me another 3-row SUV that can make that claim. Most 3-row vehicles drop to 55% of their value, which means a $50,000 SUV is worth $27,500 difference in your pocket. And the fuel economy for a vehicle this size, it's making full-size pickup owners weep. 35 miles per gallon in a 3-row SUV that seats 8 people and tows 5,000 pounds. That's not an SUV, that's a magic trick. You're getting minivan utility with sedan fuel economy and SUV styling. Toyota figured out how to violate the laws of thermodynamics. The second-row seats are where Toyota shows they understand families. They don't just slide and recline, they have ottomans. Actual leg rests that extend out. Your kids can sleep comfortably on road trips. Your parents can ride in comfort. These aren't token features, they're genuinely useful additions that make the middle row as comfortable as the front. But what comes next will make you question everything you thought you knew about luxury SUVs and which brands actually deliver quality. Number 2. The Acura MDX. Acura almost died as a brand 5 years ago. Boring designs that look like slightly fancy Hondas. No brand identity. Sales dropping year after year. Industry analysts were writing obituaries. Then they released the new MDX, and suddenly Consumer Reports is giving it a 97. That's a score reserved for vehicles that essentially don't break. And here's what's shocking. The MDX is delivering near Lexus reliability at a price point that undercuts German luxury by $20,000. But here's the secret. Acura doesn't advertise. The MDX shares almost nothing with the Honda Pilot despite being built on the same platform. Different suspension geometry designed for better handling. Different sound insulation. Pounds of extra acoustic material in the doors, floor, and roof. Different electronics architecture with higher quality components. They're cousins that grew up in different countries. The MDX is what Honda would build if they didn't have to hit mainstream price points and could focus purely on quality. What's making mechanics talk is the service intervals. This vehicle asks for so little maintenance that service departments have created special reminder programs because owners literally forget it needs attention. First major service beyond oil changes? 30,000 miles. Most luxury SUVs need transmission services at 15,000, differential fluid changes at 20,000, spark plugs at 25,000. The MDX, oil changes and tire rotations until 30,000 miles. That's it. And the tech? It actually works. Finally, the voice recognition understands normal speech without requiring specific phrases. The navigation system doesn't require a manual to operate. It's genuinely intuitive. The smartphone integration doesn't randomly disconnect when you hit a bump. In a world where automotive technology is usually 5 years behind consumer electronics and filled with bugs, the MDX feels contemporary and polished. But here's what's blowing people's minds: the warranty. Acura is so confident in this vehicle that they extended the powertrain warranty to 6 years or 70,000 miles without being asked. They didn't wait for reliability issues to surface and then offer extensions as damage control. They're practically begging owners to test the limits because they know the MDX will pass every test. And the ride quality? Engineers say the suspension tuning took 2 years to perfect. 2 years for a family SUV. Most manufacturers spend 6 months on suspension tuning. Acura spent 24. The result is a vehicle that rides like a luxury sedan, soaking up bumps without wallowing, but handles like it weighs half as much as it actually does. It's 400 to 500 pounds, but corners like a 3,000-pound sedan. The third row is actually usable. Most 3-row SUVs have a third row that's only suitable for small children or people you don't like. The MDX third row has genuine space. Adults can sit there for more than 20 minutes without their knees hurting. The second row captain's chairs slide forward easily to allow third row access. These are details that matter when you're actually using all 3 rows. But the final one on this list changes everything you think you know about reliability and luxury and value. Number 1. The Mazda CX-90. Mazda, the brand that almost went bankrupt in the 2000s. The brand that was buying engines from Ford just to survive. The brand that most people don't even consider when shopping for luxury SUVs. That Mazda just built the most reliable 3-row luxury SUV on the market. Consumer Reports gave it a 98, and the automotive world is still trying to figure out how this is possible. Here's how. Mazda stopped trying to compete on technology gimmicks and brand prestige and instead focused on perfection of basics. The CX-90 has a naturally aspirated inline-6 engine, a design most brands abandoned years ago because it's expensive to manufacture and doesn't meet modern fuel economy regulations as easily as turbocharged 4-cylinders. But natural aspiration means no turbochargers to fail at 80,000 miles, no intercoolers to develop leaks, no complex boost control systems to malfunction, no direct injection carbon buildup issues, just pistons, valves, and precision machining. The transmission is an 8-speed from ZF, the same supplier that builds transmissions for BMW, Porsche, and Aston Martin. But Mazda did something clever that other manufacturers don't. They detuned it. They're not extracting maximum performance or trying to set acceleration records. They're extracting maximum longevity. This transmission is working at 60% of its rated capacity, which means it'll outlast the vehicle itself. The clutch packs will never wear out. The torque converter will never shudder. It's engineered to handle 600 pound-feet of torque, but only transmits 340 point. That's a massive safety margin. But here's the engineering miracle that makes luxury brand engineers lose sleep. The CX-90 is built on a rear-wheel drive platform with a longitudinal engine layout. That's the same configuration as a BMW X5 or Mercedes GLE, except the CX-90 costs $40,000 less. Mazda is delivering German engineering architecture, the expensive performance-oriented platform layout with Japanese reliability and mainstream pricing. It's the automotive equivalent of finding a Rolex being sold for the price of a Timex. This shouldn't exist, the business case doesn't make sense, but Mazda built it anyway. The interior is where Mazda made their definitive statement. Genuine maplewood trim sourced from sustainable forests in Japan. Nappa leather on the seats, the same grade of leather used in Bentleys. Sound insulation so extensive that at 70 mph on the highway, the interior measures 63 decibels, quieter than many luxury sedans, and quieter than a normal conversation. They benchmarked the Audi Q7 and the Volvo XC90, then built something that matches them in every measurable way while costing thousands less. What Consumer Reports found in their long-term testing is what makes that 98 score make sense. Nothing broke. Not minor things, not major things. Nothing. The CX-90 crossed 30,000 test miles without a single unscheduled service visit. No warning lights illuminating the dashboard. No weird noises developing from the suspension. No electrical gremlins. No infotainment glitches. No issues whatsoever. For a brand new vehicle with an entirely new platform and powertrain, that's unheard of. Most new platforms have teething issues for the first 2 years. The CX-90 launched perfect. And here's what Mazda won't say in their marketing because it sounds arrogant. They over-engineered this vehicle intentionally. The chassis is rated for structural forces it'll never experience on public roads. It's engineered to handle loads that would require jumping the vehicle off cliffs. The cooling system can handle ambient temperatures this SUV will never see unless you're driving across the Sahara Desert. The brake system is rated for repeated panic stops that would only happen on a racetrack. Every component has margins built in that make normal use feel like gentle exercise. This vehicle isn't working hard, it's barely breaking a sweat. The suspension uses a multi-link design at all 4 corners. That's expensive. Most SUVs in this price range use a simple twist beam or semi-independent rear suspension because it's cheaper. Mazda spent the money on a proper multi-link setup because it handles better and lasts longer. The bushings are larger, the control arms are forged instead of stamped. These are details that cost money but deliver longevity. The final detail that makes mechanics shake their heads in disbelief. The CX-90's maintenance schedule requires so little that Mazda had to create a special program to remind owners to bring it in. Service departments are frustrated because there's nothing to fix. Oil changes every 7,500 miles. Tire rotations. That's it. For a 3-row luxury SUV. No transmission services. No differential fluid changes. No spark plug replacements until 75,000 miles. The brake fluid is the only additional service before 30,000 miles. And that's just because brake fluid absorbs moisture over time. It's not a wear item. The 3rd row is actually comfortable. You can fit adults back there for more than short trips. The 2nd row seats slide forward easily and fold flat to allow access. The climate control has dedicated vents for the 3rd row. These seem like small details, but they're what separate a 3-row SUV that's actually useful from one that just has 3 rows as a checkbox feature. Here's the mistake 80% of buyers make. They shop for SUVs based on brand prestige or technology features instead of fundamental engineering quality. They buy the BMW because of the badge. They buy the Mercedes because their neighbor has one. They buy the Audi because the dealer offered a good lease deal. Then at 60,000 miles, they're facing $8,000 in repairs for a failed turbocharger or transmission. The CX-90 will still be running perfectly, still be tight and solid, still be reliable at 150,000 miles because Mazda engineered it that way from the beginning. These 7 SUVs prove that reliability isn't luck, it's engineered. It's the result of companies that prioritize longevity over quarterly profits, function over flashiness, and precision over gimmicks. It's companies that test obsessively, that over-engineer components, that use proven technology instead of chasing innovation for its own sake. If you're in the market for an SUV that'll still be running perfectly when you're making the final payment and will still have strong resale value when you're ready to upgrade, these are your choices. Consumer Reports has done the testing. They've tracked reliability data across hundreds of thousands of vehicles. The data is in. The results are clear. Now you know which ones will last and which ones will drain your bank account. Hit that like button if this helped you dodge a bad purchase, and subscribe because I'm breaking down reliability data on every new vehicle release. The automotive industry doesn't want you to know which vehicles actually last. They want you buying new cars every 3 years. But I'm going to keep telling you the truth anyway. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 7 surprised you most.